Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Dr. Joey interviews Christian business professionals just like you to discover their secrets for working faith positive in a negative world. Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett.
Hey, Faith Positive Nation, Dr. Joey here with another amazing episode of Faith Positive Radio. Man, God keeps blessing me with so many great guests whom I discover. And people say, hey, Dr. Joey, where do you find all these guests? Well, some come to me via booking agencies who actually place people on podcasts like Faith Positive Radio. And then other times, I get to meet them in the most providential kind of ways, like through LinkedIn. So I think that's how today's guest and I met. That's what I'm remembering anyway. So, and as much as my memory still works, and we like each other's posts or something like that. We just happen to notice or find each other. So if you want to be on this podcast, we'd love to hear your story of faith and work. So join our Faith Positive group on LinkedIn, and there you'll find amazing content that lots of people like our author put in there, so that we just really want to help disciple people in understanding how their faith and work can not only connect, but actually increase. They can have greater joy at work, and they can also love God and others more. So today's guest is going to talk about money, which, by the way, was one of Jesus' favorite subjects, right? What was subject number one? Heaven. And subject number two, money. Now, maybe you get a little uncomfortable when you start talking what Jesus said about money, because he had some different ways of talking about it, right? And yet today's guest is here to help you understand how money is a tool, it's a spiritual tool, and how you can use it to actually benefit not only yourself and your family, but how you can use it to benefit others as well as you serve the ones that Jesus taught us to serve. The least of these are brothers and sisters. So Faith Positive Nation, help me welcome the founder of CreateTailwind, Jim Oliver. Jim, welcome to Faith Positive Radio.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Joey. How are you today?
Oh, man, I am doing absolutely fabulous. Jim lives in Naples, Florida, and the temperature there today this is February when we're recording this. So what's the temp today?
It's a little cooler. It's 73 today.
Man, I hate that for you.
Yeah. There is a cloud or two in the sky even.
Well, it is Florida, so you expect clouds in the sky, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Jim, tell us about CreateTailwind. How'd you come about founding this company?
So when I grew up in the inner city of Los Angeles, Joey, and I didn't understand why some people had an abundance of money and other people didn't. And I was taught about money very negative things, like money is the root of all evil, and we know that the love of money is the root of all evil.
Exactly.
But I just wanted to find out, so I studied money when I was in high school, and I had lots of jobs and little businesses, and I just learned more and more and more about it. And I went to school, and I thought, well, I'm going to be a financial planner, right?
Okay. Right.
And I did that for 15 years under CreateTailwind as a fee-based, full-service financial planning firm.
Okay.
And after a couple of corrections in the stock market, I realized that the math didn't add up. Like what we thought we were earning on average wasn't really the actual rate of return that our clients were getting.
Oh, wow.
And that Wall Street likes to publicize averages, but really what we care about is actual, right? Is how much is my money?
The real return on my money, right?
Yeah, like the CAGR, right? Your compound annual growth rate. Like if I put in $1, how much do I have now? Now, if I divide that, this is how much it's grown. Not, hey, don't worry about it. In the fees and everything else that we're going, the volatility. So I started to study our really wealthy clients. And it was funny because there was a theme. They all functioned as their own banker in some way. They either owned banks. So I was very interested to figure out how banks made money. Or they would loan money to other people, or they were just in some business where they were controlling that. So once I understood how a bank makes money, right? They take our money, they lend it to somebody else at a big multiple from what they're going to pay us.
Right.
I thought, well, wait a minute. If I'm borrowing money from the banking system and in my world, in your world, there's really only one banking system in the world, right? So if I'm borrowing money from one bank at 5% and they're paying me 0.5%, well, I know how to do cost and profit margin and figure out what their profit is, right? And I went, wait a minute. And so then I met a great mentor, R. Nelson Nash, who wrote a book called Becoming Your Own Banker. And Nelson just passed away last March at 88 years old. So he's about 35 years older than me. And he was incredible. And by the way, Joey, he would tell you about money, and then he would give you a Bible lesson for 45 minutes that you would never forget.
Oh, wow.
And so he was definitely the kind of guy that your audience would have loved to have heard from on this show. But I started to study with Nelson about taking over the banking function, and really the headwind. This is a long answer to a short question, Joey, but there's a financial headwind that we all fight.
Right. And that's that difference between what the banks are paying us in interest and what we're paying them in interest, right?
And it's all this noise out there. Just like in faith, there's all this noise out there to throw us off our faith.
Yeah,
it's the same way.
Right?
Yeah, it's right. It's the same way in money. Is the average American pays 34.5% of every net dollar that they earn, they pay it in interest. Okay? Now, not interest rate, because that's the distractor. That's the noise. It's the volume of interest. Okay. If I pay out $1 in a payment, how much of that dollar is interest and how much of it is principal?
Right.
So the one that we all know is like on a mortgage. If we paid a mortgage for 30 years, we know we're going to pay about double. Right? So Joey, let me ask you a question. If you earn $1 and you have to give me half, do you care what your interest rate is?
No, I want to know why you're getting half of my dollar.
That's right. So that's what's really happening, that headwind. So by taking over that banking function, we can actually create a tailwind. So if everybody's fighting a 30-mile headwind and we're creating a 30-mile tailwind, that's a 60-mile difference, 60-mile-an-hour difference. That's how we separate ourselves.
Does that
make sense?
Yeah, by becoming our own banker the way that Nelson Nash taught you how to do it. So what were some of those Bible stories that Nelson told you along the way to teaching you how to become your own banker?
Well, he talked about Matthew 25:17 and the parable of the talents. By the way, I'm like the worst guy. Like I remember my kids' birthdays normally. So if I say 25:17, I think that's right. But if it was 24 something, just go with me. Okay.
It's in Matthew, and everybody's heard the parable of the talents. And by the way, I know your kids' birthdays are important, but please remember your wedding anniversary. That's more important.
That's one I can tell you, December 6th. Yeah, I got that one. I can't tell you that I've always been a good steward of that date, but around the 4th, I wonder why I'm having anxiety. Like, I haven't gotten anything yet.
So what Bible lesson did Nelson teach you about the parable of the talents, Jim?
You know, he taught a lot. The parable of the talents is that it's talking about putting money, because a talent back in the day was about 1 year's annual salary, right? And it was a lot, like a high salary. So for somebody to have 5 talents is a lot of money, right?
5 years.
And then they put that money in motion and doubled it, right? And then the servant that got 3 talents doubled that by putting it in motion. And if you think about it, that's what banks do. They loan it to other people to get that interest, and they're putting other people's money in motion. And so the servant that didn't put it in motion, that buried it in the dirt, right? He says, you wicked and evil servant, the least you could have done is give it to the bankers to earn interest. So, you know, in understanding and relating that to modern day, in my mind and in Nelson's mind, that's the least you should do, is give it to somebody to try to earn interest in like mutual funds or CDs or whatever. But the way to really leverage your money and create velocity of money, which is going to grow it, is by putting it in motion, which is just exactly what a bank does. Because when you make a deposit, they take your money. But then when you make your mortgage payment, what do they do with the payment every month? They lend it out again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. And so that was a great Bible lesson in his book, which, by the way, I want to offer a free gift to anybody that's listening to this show that wants this book for free, no obligation. I'll send them a copy of Nelson's book, Becoming Your Own Banker. There's a few books that I buy in bulk, and that's one of them. And so
that's awesome, man. That is so generous. So you've learned how to invest in other people as well, then, by offering a free copy of a book, right?
Absolutely. You know, that's the thing that I one of my favorite books is The Go-Giver.
Yeah, and, Bob Berg, right?
Bob Berg, he's a great guy too.
Oh, super.
And I buy into that 100%, is that we are really here to serve. And the more that you serve, I'm going to find somebody that's a good collaboration, somehow handing out books. And I hand out literally cases of these books a year.
Oh, man, that is obvious. So how'd you get started understanding, I refer to it as the law of reciprocity? Jesus said, ask and you'll receive, and knock and it'll be found. And it's right from the Bible. I mean, it's right. It's like one of those things. This is normally me, Joey, is the Bible says do something after I've heard it about 100 times, then I actually try it. Have to get your attention, right, Jim?
That's right. And then I say, okay, well, I'm just going to go give things away and see if it comes back. And it's amazing. I'll give somebody a book and they'll send me something, or a book they wrote, or a white paper they wrote. And I'll go, wow, that is so cool. And so, and some people don't give anything back, and it's okay. But I think that I just learned that I never wanted to be that guy that took things from somebody or try to convince people of something and so, it's that fifth law. If you've read The Go-Giver, the fifth law is be open to receive. Well, I'm not that good at receiving, but I'm good at giving. So I'm still working on on mastering the 5 laws of stratospheric success. But that's, I think that's, and I had a lot of people when I was in my 20s and growing up in the business that really gave to me. So it's that reciprocity, just like you said.
Yeah. And paying it forward. And I mean, it's one thing to buy a cup of coffee for the person behind you, right? Which is great. Please do that. But it's another to actually mentor someone or invest in someone's life. And that's obviously what Nelson Nash did for you. Jim Oliver is the creator of CreateTailwind, and the web address is CreateTailwind.com. Tell me more about this whole infinite banking concept.
So if you know what's happening, you'll know what to do. If we know what the problem is. So there's forces that we're facing financially that are really against us. And really infinite banking is the solution. But it's like when I told Nelson, I think it was last March, because it was right before he passed away. I said, Nelson, I'm reading the Bible this year, and for some reason I decided to start at the beginning and just go straight through. Right. And I said, Nelson, I'm struggling with the Old Testament. I mean, I'm struggling with
what, Leviticus is not your favorite book?
I mean, like if I can't sleep at night, I'll just start reading some of the Old Testament and I'm out, and I mean, there's parts, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's some great parts of the Old Testament, but there's some parts that I was struggling through. And he said, he's from Alabama. So he said, Jim, he said, you have to understand the problem.
Now, we have listeners in Alabama.
I know. I'm going to Alabama tomorrow. I love Alabama. South.
Well, now Jane Cresswell, my coaching partner, really loves Auburn, even though she's from Mobile. So we're not giving a shout out to the University of Alabama unless you like them, and then roll Tide. But go War Eagles too. So we've settled all the differences in Alabama.
So he would say that's right. And I'm going to Birmingham to speak at this think tank that Nelson put on every year. And this will be the first year he wasn't there. But he would say, so when I told him, I said, I can't wait to get to the New Testament because I just don't know if I can get through this Old Testament. And he said, Jim, You have to understand the problem before you can understand the solution. He said the Old Testament is the problem. The New Testament is the solution.
Wow. That's a great way of looking at it, man.
It is. And it was a great, again, another Bible lesson from Nelson in about 15 seconds. But so it's the same way with money. If we're fighting this headwind, right?
Right.
Then everybody thinks that the answer is to pay cash. But if I told you that you finance every single thing that you buy, you would look at me kind of sideways. But what I mean by that is you either give up interest that you could have earned somewhere else. That's lost opportunity cost, paying cash.
Lost opportunity cost, yeah. If I pay cash.
Or I pay somebody interest. Now, if I can recapture that, I have an advantage, right? So infinite banking system is building your own private banking system. Instead of putting money in real estate, or no, I'm sorry, not in real estate. You can put money in real estate, put money in Wall Street and letting it sit there 20, 30, 40 years, not benefit from it. It's at risk every single day. We build our own money pool. And so then we want to buy things. We get to collateralize that money pool at 100%. Okay. Now I would, when you go to a bank, if you had a stock account, it's worth, you could maybe collateralize 50% of that. A bond account's about 80%. Right. But this is 100% collateralized at negotiated rates. And you determine the payment schedule. Okay. So we put this together, this money pool. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to build it. Right. But then when we want to buy things, we borrow against that money pool and we pay ourselves back at whatever the bank was going to charge us. Thus, our money never leaves that account though, because we're collateralizing it. So it's growing every single day, uninterrupted compounding. And then we're going out and buying the things with other people's money and charging ourselves the interest that a bank would charge us.
Okay, let's say I'm going to buy a house for $100,000. Just to make sure I understand this, I'm going to buy a house for $100,000. I've got a cash account with $100,000 in it. So I use that in the bank and I say, okay, this is the guarantee on my purchasing this home. I want you to finance it for me against this cash account to buy that house.
Absolutely. And the financial institution that we're working with has to give you a loan by contract anytime you want it. And you don't have to apply for it. You don't tell them what it's for or anything.
Ah, okay. So it's like it could be a personal loan. I don't have to buy a house. I can buy whatever I want to with it.
You're the banker. Whatever is a good loan for you.
And what's the huge advantage for me in doing this, Jim?
Well, what it does is it builds your wealth over time a lot more efficiently because our need for finance throughout our lives is much greater than our need for investment. So a way to think about it is this. Would you rather earn interest on money you save or on money you spend? On the money you spend, right? So if we could earn interest on the major purchases and things like that, you could even take your tithing, right? And you could write the church a check up front, then pay yourself back over time with interest. Churches can use this for capital improvements, everything else like that. They could use it to help pay their pastors and develop
develop ministries, right?
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. So what are some of the challenges that you discovered in creating a Tailwind, Jim?
You know, some of the challenges were, it's a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Nobody teaches us this. And Joey, we are not taught about money. We're not taught about money in school. I mean, it doesn't matter. Or church, right? I mean, Dave Ramsey gets a lot of things right, but it's really, if you do the math, telling people to pay cash for things and that you're going to get 12% on a mutual fund is not a good financial plan. And you know, here's the other thing. If you're somebody of faith and I said to you, if I gave you $100 million tomorrow And I just use 100 million, like, because if you can't live on 100 million, then you and God got to have some conversations, right?
That's what I'm thinking.
And so I make it a number that's just so big. So you're going to have $100 million.
Okay.
What would your life look like?
How would it change? Mm-hmm.
Right. It wouldn't be, for me, it wouldn't be I'm playing golf 4 days a week and I'm fishing 5 days a week and I wouldn't be sitting on the beach. I would be out serving. My resignation for service will be in my obituary, right? So I would be finding a local food bank, or I'd be finding a women and children's shelter or something, some things that I'm passionate about. And I wouldn't need to do it for money, but that's what I would do to be of service, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what we want. Your listeners that are in their 20s or 30s, these young people, they don't want to put money away for 20, 30, 40 years before they can touch it without penalty. And then then they're going to have to pay tax on it. And Joey, the government will not tell us what tax rate we're going to have to pay then.
No, they can't tell us that. Depends on who's elected, right?
So young people are not as challenging. Old guys like me, that their paradigm is in cement. I know my 401k is the greatest asset of all time.
Right.
Well, wait a minute. How about if I could show you how to be financially independent? Because, my 21-year-old, she always would say that all you talk about is money. And I'd say money equals choices. Choices equal freedom. I'm all about freedom.
And buying yourself discretionary time to be able to serve at the soup kitchen or work in the women and children's shelter or something like that. Yeah. So the challenge is this new mental model of how we can use money as a tool to be able to leverage and create discretionary time for ourselves to serve others.
Yeah. And so wouldn't that be cool if we could get this movement of people, of believers out there that could figure out a way to outthink this system, to get financially ahead, be financially independent, meaning they don't have to go to work, that their money is supporting them, not them going to work for money. And then what good could they do? If they want to go, we were talking about Francis Chan, if we want to leave our church, or we want to leave our community and go to Africa for a year,
and
serve that continent and serve and show people God, I mean, then we can do that.
And that's part of the buying ourselves discretionary time so that I can go serve others, whether it's in my local community or like Francis and his family did, just uprooting and going to another continent to serve others in Jesus' name and take them with him.
Amen.
Yeah. So Jim Oliver is the creator of CreateTailwind. You can go to his website at CreateTailwind.com. And there you can find more information about the infinite banking concept. And Jim, is there a contact form there on your website at CreateTailwind.com so we can get in touch with you?
Yeah, there is. There's there's a form on there and it just says sign up for a free coaching session. Okay. Coaching sessions are just like this. They're on Zoom. I work with people all over the country.
Sweet.
And I don't do automation very well. It's not going to be a click funnel of me telling you a 30-second video until you keep going down, then there's something to buy. There's nothing to buy.
Gotcha.
If I can help you build your own banking system, then great. If I can't, then that's okay too.
Gotcha. And so we can use this contact form at CreateTailwind.com to say, hey, I heard you on Faith Positive Radio, and I want my copy of Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash.
Absolutely.
Wonderful, wonderful. Jim Oliver, CreateTailwind.com. Our Faith Positive Nation is always interested in the favorite Bible verse or Bible passage or story or something from our guest. What's yours?
Mine is James 1:2 to, is 2 to 8, really. I mean, but I love the beginning of that. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance, and let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete. I mean, I love the beginning of that. And
what is it you love about the beginning of that verse?
I grew up in foster homes. I stood in line for government cheese. I've been homeless. And so I didn't know God then. I never walked into a church in my youth, and I really dared God to take me out of this world, and God had other plans. And so I never understood why until I read that.
Wow. Now where is your why in that, Jim?
My why is growing up in the inner city of Los Angeles. I saw all of these people in pain that didn't understand money, but I also saw these people with a lot of abundance of money. And it made me feel lesser than, and then I read the Bible when I was in my early 20s. And it was like the why just came to me about, I have to understand, right? Like knowledge does not equal understanding. So I could have knowledge of who Jesus was, but if I don't understand the heart of Jesus, and I don't understand the heart of the Holy Spirit in me, then so my why is, I say, God, I don't really have any other talents. When I worship at church, I mean, sometimes, I think they turn the microphones, they turn the lights off down there because they're trying to tell me, keep it down. My wife looks at me like, but
Jim, we love you, man, but don't sing so loud.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, keep it down a little bit over there. So I don't have a lot of other talent other than I know how money works. And I've learned that from God, and I've learned that from great mentors like R. Nelson Nash, and I've learned it from reading the Bible and seeing Jesus's teachings. So that's my why. That's my ministry. It's like a financial ministry. Again, nobody's gonna hire me to get up on stage and talk about the Bible unless they're talking about money.
Right. Man, this is amazing. Jim Oliver is the founder of CreateTailwind. Go to his site, CreateTailwind.com. Ask him, give him the opportunity to share with you Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, and then sign up for a free coaching consultation there with Jim. Jim, man, thanks so much. This has been amazing information you've shared with us. We appreciate understanding biblically how money works and how we can best leverage it through the infinite banking concept. We just pray God's blessings on you, your amazing wife, children, and grandchildren. Thanks so much for the gift of your time today, Jim.
Thank you, Dr. Joey. I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on as your guest.
Thanks for listening to Faith Positive Radio, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Suggest guests and ask questions when you email Dr. Joey at info@getpositive.today. And be sure to get your free gift of the 5 positive business conversations to have today coaching program at getpositive.today. Until next time, may God bless you with everything your heart can hope for and more than your mind can imagine.